Oh, Warren, Million Voices Whisper just out, and pretty exciting time. I don't know if you plan to have this many things happening when the album was coming out. You know, a lot of stuff happening right now. Um, is it, you're known for having a lot of things going on, but a solo album is not something you do all the time. Was your intention to have the release date have some space, and then kind of the world happened, and you have Soulshine coming up, and you probably knew you'd have New Year's coming up too. I mean, that's not a shocker, but it's a little different than how you would plan the rollout.
Yeah, I think you know maybe all things happen for a reason, but initially we were looking to release the record a little earlier, and then with the way the music business is these days, and vinyl taking forever to get finalized, it got delayed a little bit. But I thought it was good to take the band on the road and introduce some of the songs live and introduce the band to the audience. And so it's worked out in a cool way that the record's just now coming out, but people are already kind of buzzing about what the music is like.
Yeah.
As far as none of us could ever predicted the hurricane disaster the way it is, and that we would be in a position of needing to rally the troops to do this Soulshine benefit, which I'm so happy that people are coming together, and so proud of everybody. Everybody's rising to the occasion and making this happen all over. So many different musicians and artists are making these benefits happen, and I'm very happy about that. Yeah, there's a lot going on.
Yeah. One thing about the record that I've enjoyed is there seems to be a real positive vibe to it. I don't know if that was the way you were feeling when you were writing, or you were trying to put something into the world that, maybe you felt was needed, but, tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I feel like in the past 5 years or so, I've kind of turned a corner, and it started to explore some different uh, approaches to songwriting that I think every songwriter goes through every few years, every X amount of time, whatever that process is. It started for me at the beginning of the COVID lockdown. I've written my share of dark songs through the years, and the last thing I wanted to do was allow that situation to turn me into an even darker place or interpreter. So I just started concentrating on the things that are most important in life, and looking through a different lens, and kind of opened a new chapter for me, um, not knowing where it was all going to lead. And it's carried over through two Gov't Mule records, and now with this new solo record, where I'm glad to be kind of writing about different subject matters, writing philosophically from a different standpoint, musically, lyrically, all the way around. I just feel like it's a beautiful challenge for me. Yeah, as someone who's been writing songs all my life, it's very inspiring.
I want to talk about a few of the songs, in particular. And I want to ask about Day of Reckoning. You have Lucas and Jamie on there. And I always wonder, when someone has guests on a record, in this case, were you thinking of them as you were writing, or when did you realize those were the people you wanted on the track?
Well, I started writing that song. I got the idea at like 3 a.m. one night when I was laying in bed about to fall asleep. And so I got up and sang it into my phone so I wouldn't forget it. And then the next day when I woke up, I was like, oh, this is cool. I need to work on this. So I started writing it prior to a writing session that I was going to have with Lucas and Jamie, where I showed it to them. And Lucas's initial reaction was to sing it in a round where the voices are answering each other. And I thought that was a really cool addition that I had never thought of. And then Jamie started kind of adding his low gospel harmony thing in there. And so at that point, I thought we should capture this on the recording, the three of us singing. So it was important for me because the three of us have sung together a lot. We did that last waltz tour together where we were the three lead voices doing the band's music, and it was always Jamie on the bottom and me in the middle and Lucas on the top when we were singing three-part harmony. And we just loved the way our voices blended together. Then once we got in the studio, Lucas played some amazing guitar as well. So I'm really, really happy with the way that track turned out. It kind of defies categorization a little bit. I don't know how to describe it. You know, it's got a gospel element, kind of got a staple singer's vibe about it, but it's three male voices blending together. I don't know, but I dig the way it sounds.
Yeah, I really like what Derek Trucks adds on the record, and I was shocked in doing my research that it's the first time you've recorded with Derek since Hitting the Note, if what I read was correct in another interview. Have you not recorded with him since then? It's like 20 years.
I don't think it goes that far back. You know, definitely we haven't collaborated to this extent.
Yeah.
You know, I sang harmony on a Tedeschi Trucks band song that we wrote together since then, and we've jammed on stage quite a few times together. But this is the most we've collaborated in the studio since Hitting the Note.
Yeah. So obviously you two have a history together, and that people are pretty familiar with. When you get in the studio with someone like Derek, maybe you've played with him more than any other guitarist. I don't know. It's maybe a good. He's got to be up there. Does it when you get in the studio, do you automatically each fall into your roles, or do you have to map it out a little and say, I'm going to go this way, you go this way, or so forth?
Well, we like to leave things to chance for the most part. We like to see what happens in the moment. And which is what happened in the studio here. We had spent 3 days at his place in Georgia writing songs, and then 2 days in the studio recording. But a lot of the arranging and especially the improvisation happened in the moment. We didn't know what was going to happen until we got there. As an example, the opening song, "These Changes," we had written and arranged most of that tune, but that final outro guitar section just happened spontaneously, and we decided to keep it. And the same with the ending of Hall of Future Saints. You know, the ending is longer than the song itself, but that's just something that happened in the moment. And a lot of people would have said, no, let's edit that out or fade it quickly or whatever. But I think the fact that the two of us are in the studio together working, people want to hear the unedited version of that, you know.
Yeah.
So, you know, we love walking the tightrope, you know, seeing what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I would assume that's something that comes with time. That's if it's someone you just met today, no matter how good they are on their instrument, I would think you would not maybe have that comfort level to make yourself kind of uncomfortable, if that makes sense, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. I think Derek probably is the guitar player I've played more with than any other. And our chemistry was great from the very first time we played together, but just continued to get better and better and better. And that's what happens when you allow yourself to continue your relationship with a band or with you know, a pairing of musicians or whatever the case may be. It just grows. If you give it time, it will continue to grow. And we played together so much that we can kind of finish each other's thoughts, you know, and that's a huge aspect of what it is that we do. And it's hard to describe how unrehearsed things are sometimes when you work with people that you work with all the time. It's just organic.
Yeah. So obviously a former bandmate of yours and Derek's, Greg Alman, is in a way featured on the record, at least his writing. And I read the background on that, and you don't have to tell me all about the nuts and bolts of how that came about, but an unfinished song that Greg Alman got started on, and it sounds like something you just kind of jumped at the chance to do. Did you feel is it included as a bit of a tribute to him and the co-writing work you had done together, like a chance to, in a way, do that again?
Yeah, it was that, as well as just making sure that a beautiful unfinished song came to life. And once that happened, it was kind of the catalyst that got Derek and I back together. I called him and told him about the song and told him that I thought we should record it together. And of course, that conversation led to, well, let's get together and write some more songs, and then let's get in the studio and record together. So it was a nice organic process, and I'm really glad that we were able to bring that song to fruition.
And speaking of, if we're talking about you, Derek, and Greg, I mean, the Allman Brothers obviously does not a band anymore, but it is an entity. There is people that are blood. You have Devin Allman and Dwayne Betts out there, and people like you that were in the band forever. Derek, who's both a former band member and a former, relative. I assume it's nice to see that still going. You're involved with some projects, not others. Are you? Did you kind of expect there to be so much Allman Brothers related activity in the aftermath? I mean, it's been a few years now since the band played its last show, and a lot of bands, they play the last show and you never hear anything again from the members together or their musical offspring, so to speak.
Yeah, that music is so timeless that and Derek and I are such fans of the original band. I always say that when I think about the Allman Brothers, I think about the band with Dwayne Allman and Barry Oakley that was together 1960, 70, and 69, 70, and 71. And that music and the music that was made later and the music that we made the last 14 years that we were together, I think is timeless music and deserves to be carried into the future, whether it's by us or by other people. And I think the audience knows that the audience can tell when something has a timeless quality about it. It's really the audience that brings music back and puts the stamp of approval on it and says this music is good to go into the future.
Yeah.
And I guess we've always shared that love of that music and known that that music was classic and timeless, but it's nice to see it proven that way. And it those songs they're flexible and elastic and interpretable, so you can take them into a lot of different places. So you're not just recreating something that's already been done. You're kind of rediscovering or discovering a way of reimagining it.
Yeah, it seems like everything you just said there could also be applied to the music of the Grateful Dead, which
Yeah.
is also continuing in various forms. And obviously, you're a big part of that post Garcia world. I wanted to ask about Soulshine, which we just alluded to, but for people that don't know, it's hurricane benefit for the victims of the tragedy in North Carolina, and it's quite a lineup. I mean, was it like you and Dave that initially, Dave Matthews, that is kind of were the originators, or how did the whole thing come together?
Yeah, I'm from Asheville, North Carolina, and that part of North Carolina got devastated by Hurricane Helene. My family's all still there. I have tons of close friends. Most of my family and close friends had to relocate. They had weeks or months with no water, no power, no cell service. But a lot of people that aren't in my immediate circle were devastated to the point that it's going to take years and years to rebuild. So I normally do this benefit concert in Asheville called the Christmas Jam, and I was planning on doing a Christmas Jam this year. And once all this happened, it became obvious that we weren't going to be able to do it in Asheville. So the mission became how to make the most money, the most impact, and raise awareness uh, by doing it somewhere else. So I reached out to Dave Matthews Camp, and as it turns out, they have a lot of ties to the Sarasota, Florida area, which was devastated by 2 hurricanes back to back. So we were on the same page about doing something like this. So that's where the idea came about, and of course, everybody volunteered their services right off the bat. All of our friends and people in the music business are just rising to the occasion and contributing, volunteering their services, and coming together in a amazing way right now. As I mentioned, the mission for this is just to raise as much money as possible, knowing it is just a drop in the bucket on what needs to be done.
Yeah. One thing about the show itself, I've noticed, a lot of benefit type shows. There's maybe 10 to 15 acts listed, and they're each going to play about 3 songs. You don't have that many main acts on there, which my friends and I who rushed out and got tickets makes us think that these sets are going to be, somewhat substantial. I mean, I don't know if you've sat down and mapped out the evening yet, but it looks like it's going to be some decent length on these sets with some amazing special guests maybe floating in and out of these performances.
Yeah, I think the idea for this was the performers that we've enlisted for this show. People expect a little more lengthy performance, and a little and for there to be some stage sharing. Most of these people that are kind enough to be part of this, we all exist in a world where we've known each other for a long time. We've played on stage together many, many times. And so it's a lot of a family reunion in that way. So everybody will be sharing the stage with everybody, and everybody will be able to do a little longer set than if it were like you mentioned, where people do 2 songs. And again, just the impact, let's do it with as few artists as possible that we know we can make the impact and raise the money, because that's really what it's all about, making amazing music with people that have a like-minded mindset, and for people that share that same musical mindset.
Yeah, and believe it's sold out, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So why did you decide to have it in New York City, and specifically, MSG obviously is, the mecca of New York, but
Well, New York is such a great music town. We were considering a few different places, but again, it's the financial impact is the most important concern. The fact that the Dave Matthews Band was doing 2 nights at Madison Square Garden prior to this makes it logistically so much better. And it saves us a ton of money in production and union costs and load in and load out, and all these things that are important in putting on a show. We were thinking Madison Square Garden. That was one of the handful of places that we were discussing from the beginning. And once it came about that everybody was available on this date, and it worked out for the Dave Matthews Band, it just made the most sense logistically. And I can't thank them enough for coming through. It's incredible what they're offering to this overall picture.
Yeah. Warren, I know you've been doing the Christmas Jam going way back, decades. And I was wondering, when was there a certain event or something you saw in your community when you realized, when you felt you had a responsibility to give back and then rally the troops, and your friends and other musicians to do this, because obviously it's not something you have to do, or you could just answer the call when someone else is having a benefit. But you've been proactive about it. You've been a leader in that department.
Well, actually, it came about in an odd sort of organic way. Uh, the very first Christmas Jam was just a bunch of local musicians getting together in a club and jamming, and at the only time of the year that we were all in town, because musicians travel, and so everybody's schedule is different, and so that holiday period seemed to be the only time we were all around. And this is before I had joined the Allman Brothers. I think the first Christmas Jam was in 1988, and I joined the Allman Brothers in January of '89. Uh, so it's kind of a weird coincidence. But we were just using it as an excuse to get together and play music and have fun. And then, well, what do we do with the money? Let's donate it to a charity. So we picked a charity. It was successful. We did it again the next year, picked another charity. And once we decided to continue the process, somewhere along the line, Habitat for Humanity came into the picture, and we really liked working with them. We could see where the money was going. It just clicked, and from that point forward, we've been working with them. But the first 2 or 3 years we're in a club, then it moved into a theater, then it outgrew the theater after 2 or 3 years and moved to the arena, where it's been for over 25 years now. It was really just a natural chain of events, because it started local, became regional, then became national, then became international. And it was all opportunity driven. It wasn't like I was thinking, oh, I want to do some big charity show. It was just like, well, we have the opportunity to do this. We should take advantage of it.
Government Mule, New Year's run coming, and New York, you'll be at another classic venue, the Beacon. What does that mean to you to do these New Year's shows? I mean, I know it's always a big special, couple days.
Well, the Beacon is the venue that I've played more than any other venue in the world. I think I've played there over 300 times, which seems a little crazy. My first Beacon show was 1988 with the Dickie Betts Band, and the opening act was Melissa Etheridge, who had just released her first record.
Wow.
So that's how I go back with the Beacon. For over 20 years now, I guess we've been doing Gov't Mule New Year's shows there, and they're very special. It's a wonderful venue. That audience is fantastic, and it's turned into this beautiful tradition where we do a thematic show on the 31st, and it's usually a really long show, and then we usually do 2 or 3 nights all told. I'm excited because Gov't Mule hasn't played in a while, so we're looking forward to getting back into rehearsal and kicking off the dust and doing these shows, then Jamaica, and then some shows next year for our 30th anniversary, which is right around the corner.
Yeah, that's great. What's planned for the 30th anniversary as far as releases? Is there going to be, special editions of old records? Is there going to be new music coming out?
Yes, there's going to be, going back to the early trio with myself and Matt Apps and Alan Woody. There's some studio recordings that have never been released before that I'm really excited to put out for the anniversary. There's also some live recordings from that era that have never come out that are fantastic. So I think it's been fun for me to kind of go through the archives and see what's there, and I'm amazed at how much cool stuff exist, especially from the first record and a little bit from the second and third records. Uh, yeah, so you know, it's hard to believe it's been 30 years, but I think people will really enjoy this unreleased music.
Yeah. And you put a very nice post online in tribute to Phil Lesh, who passed very recently. And I always enjoyed the work you did with him, especially with his quintet. With that band was really special. And we all know what people that have been listening to his music, they know what he's contributed and whatnot. But I was interested in asking you what Phil was like as a band leader, and what maybe you have adopted from his approach as a band leader, whether it's with Gov't Mule, or whether it's even putting together an event like Soulshine, where you're an event leader, or the Christmas Jam.
I think Phil's biggest attribute as a band leader would be his philosophy of how music needs to be not controlled and not controllable. Um, I talked about this in my post. He was the most open-minded musician I've ever worked with, as far as putting no expectations on the music, no pressure on the music, and specifically on the improvisation. The improvisation was meant to go wherever it was going to go, and he didn't even like reining it in if it felt like it was getting chaotic or
Hmm.
losing its way. He loved that. It was just part of the journey, and they fortunately were blessed to have created this audience that would go on that journey with them. But I can remember times when I would think the jams were getting a little out of hand, and I would look over and Phil would be almost laughing. He was grinning so hard and having so much fun. And some of that journey and some of the fun is the unknown, and seeing if you can go so far that you might not be able to get back.
Right.
Uh, and so it just opened my mind extremely, because I always thought I was an open-minded musician until I met Phil, and I was like, wow, he really puts no parameters on it whatsoever. You know, and that was really the most important thing for him, is for it to not be delineated and not be contrived. Did I lose you? I think we're
Yeah.
frozen. Okay.
Um, that's wonderfully said. No, I think we're okay now. Do you hear me all right?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I have you.
Okay. Yeah, a little bit of problem there. But I heard everything you said there about Phil. And but before I let you go, anything else you wanted to mention about the new record, or anything else that you're working on or excited about, wanted to mention?
Well, next year we're going to continue to promote Million Voices Whisper with this new band. And we're also going to do, as I mentioned, some special Gov't Mule shows for the 30th anniversary. I'm also going to be releasing a live 2 CD set with the Asheville Symphony Orchestra that was
Ooh.
recorded prior to COVID. Uh, the band, along with the symphony for that record, is Oteil Burbridge on bass, Jeff Sipe on drums, John Medeski on keyboards, and Greg Osby on saxophone. We recorded 2 nights at the Thomas Wolfe Auditorium right before COVID, and we delayed it till now because it's kind of a retrospective of my career. There's Alman Brothers songs, Grateful Dead songs, Gov't Mule songs, songs from my solo records, but all interpreted with the band and the symphony together. And I feel like it's a once in a lifetime project, and I didn't want it to get lost in the COVID shuffle. So it's taken till now for it to come out, but I'm very excited about that. I feel like that having each of those catalogs to choose from gave me the ability to only choose songs that I think work really well with an orchestra, because I don't think most songs do work well with an orchestra.
Mm.
I've never been someone that was a fan of just combining an orchestra with pop music or rock music or jazz or whatever, just for the sake of doing it. I think it's a song by song basis that makes it work. And there's so many to choose from between those catalogs that I had access to. So many great songs that I'm really excited. I think people are gonna get it.
On that note, just as a fan, is there anywhere I could find, a good recording of when you did the symphonic Jerry Garcia tribute, specifically the Central Park one, because I was there and it was an incredible evening.
Well, there's some stuff on YouTube. I don't know how great the quality is, but there's some audience recordings, and maybe some of them are good. I'm not sure.
Okay, I'll have to go look. I was wondering if I might be missing something, and there was some holy grail there. But okay, Warren, I really appreciate it, and thanks for doing this. And looking forward to Soulshine and everything else you have in store in the next few months.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
All right, thanks.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye.